If you only knew what God is building in the very moment you think, He's silent, you'd stop crying yourself to sleep and start preparing for the blessing. Don't scroll away, because the moment you think it's over might just be the moment He's about to step in. I know what it feels like to sit in the dark and wonder if the light will ever come. To smile on the outside while feeling empty on the inside. To pray and feel like your words are bouncing off the ceiling. But here's the truth. God's grace is not just for the moments when everything is going well. His grace is the very thing that will carry you through the seasons you don't think you can survive. Grace is not permission to give up. Grace is strength you didn't earn, favor you couldn't buy, and peace you can't explain. It shows up when the bills don't make sense, when the diagnosis comes back worse than you expected, when the people you trusted walk away. Grace says, I'll carry you when you can't carry yourself. You don't have to have it all together for grace to find you. Grace will meet you in the hospital room. Grace will meet you at the graveside. Grace will meet you on the bathroom floor when you're crying so hard you can't breathe. Grace doesn't wait for you to be perfect. It walks into your mess and whispers, I'm still here. Some of you think God is mad at you because you're struggling. You think you have to clean yourself up before you can come to Him. But His grace says, come as you are. I already know. And I still choose you. You can't outrun His love. You can't out-sin His mercy. And you can't outlast His grace. The enemy wants you to believe that your dark moment is the end of your story. But grace says it's just the middle. You may feel weak right now, but in your weakness, His strength is made perfect. You may feel broken, but grace is the glue that will hold you together until the healing comes. I don't know what you're facing today. Maybe it's heartbreak. Maybe it's loss. Maybe it's fear about the future. But I do know this, you are not alone, and you are not without help. The same God who parted the Red Sea, who closed the mouths of lions, who walked on water, is walking into your storm with you right now. His grace is enough, always. So lift your head, wipe your tears. Remind your soul that this darkness will not win. Grace has already gone ahead of you, making a way where there is no way. Grace is not just getting you through this. Grace is turning this into your testimony. There's something about weakness that makes us feel ashamed. We've been trained to hide it, to dress it up, to smile when our world is falling apart. But God is not intimidated by your weakness. In fact, He specializes in stepping into the moments you think are your lowest and revealing His strength in a way that leaves no doubt. It was Him who carried you. Weakness doesn't scare Him. It's the stage where His power shines the brightest. We think strength means doing everything on our own. We wear ourselves out trying to hold it all together, thinking if we just push harder, try harder, believe harder, maybe we can make it through. But the truth is, God's grace often shows up when you stop trying to be the hero and let Him take the lead. It's in the moment you whisper, I can't do this anymore, that His voice says, I know, me. God's strength in your weakness isn't about suddenly making the storm disappear. Sometimes it's about giving you the endurance to keep walking through the storm without losing your mind. It's the peace that makes no sense when you should be falling apart. It's the calm in your spirit when the chaos around you is loud. It's waking up one more day when you swore you couldn't get out of bed yesterday. You may not even recognize his strength at first because it doesn't always come as a dramatic miracle. Sometimes it's a quiet, steadying hand on your back when you feel like you're collapsing. Sometimes it's a random phone call from a friend who says exactly what you needed to hear. Sometimes it's a verse you've read 100 times, suddenly feeling like it was written just for you in this moment. That's grace. Not always loud, but always present. When you are weak, you're actually in the perfect position for God to do what only He can do. Because when you've reached the end of yourself, you finally stop relying on yourself. That's when you discover His strength was never meant to be a backup plan. It was supposed to be your foundation all along. Your weakness creates space for His greatness. It's easy to believe God is strong when life is good, but His strength in your weakness builds a deeper kind of faith. A faith that says, even if I can't see the way forward, I trust that you're holding me. A faith that can look at the mess and still expect a miracle. A faith that learns to lean instead of stand alone. If you're in a season where you feel too tired to keep going, I want you to know this is exactly the kind of place where grace shows up. Not when you've got everything under control, but when you feel like you're losing control. That's where His strength becomes real. That's when you realize you were never meant to do this alone. And maybe, just maybe, the reason you're still standing right now, even if you're standing shaky, is because God's strength has been holding you up this entire time. You didn't just make it here by willpower or luck. Grace has been carrying you, even when you didn't feel it, even when you didn't see it. That's the beauty of His strength in your weakest moments. There's a certain loneliness that comes in hard seasons. The kind where you can be surrounded by people and still feel invisible. You can sit in a crowded room and feel like no one truly sees the pain you carry. But here's the truth. God's grace sees you, even in the corners where you think no one is looking. His presence is not dependent on how strong you feel. It's a constant, even when your heart feels empty. Grace does to show up in the light when the skies are clear and the path is easy to see. It walks into your darkest valley without hesitation. It pulls up a chair next to your pain, not to rush you out of it, but to let you know you don't have to sit in it alone. Even when the people you counted on have disappeared, grace remains, whispering, I'm still here. When life feels heavy, it's tempting to believe you've been abandoned. Maybe prayers have gone unanswered. Maybe doors keep closing. Maybe you feel like you've been left to figure it out yourself. But grace is the evidence that God hasn't forgotten you. Every breath you take, every ounce of strength you didn't know you had, every moment you didn't break completely, That's proof you are not walking through this season by yourself. Sometimes grace looks like divine comfort in a silent moment. Sometimes it's a supernatural peace that wraps around your soul when there's no logical reason for you to be calm. And sometimes it's the unexpected blessing that shows up in the middle of chaos, like a reminder that God still knows your name, your situation, and your need. You see, accepted enemy wants you to believe that you've been abandoned because isolation makes the battle feel impossible. But God's grace steps into that lie and says, you are not forgotten. I am closer than the pain that's trying to break you. Even when you can't trace his hand, you can trust his heart. Even when you can't see the way forward, you can know he is walking beside you. Grace doesn't just accompany you, it carries you. There are moments you think you're moving on your own, but in reality, you're being held together by a love that refuses to let you go. You didn't make it this far because you were strong enough. You made it because grace refused to let your story end here. And the beautiful thing about grace is that it doesn't need perfect conditions to work. It doesn't wait for the storm to pass or for you to be better. It meets you exactly where you are. In the mess, in the tears, in the confusion. And it becomes your shelter until you're strong enough to stand again. So, if you've been feeling like you're walking through this valley alone, I need you to know you are not. The very fact that you are still breathing, still pressing forward, still showing up despite the weight you carry, is a sign that grace has been walking with you every step of the way. Even in your darkest moments, you have never been truly alone. Sometimes you look back at certain seasons of your life and wonder, how did I even survive that? The truth is, you didn't do it in your own strength. There's a power that comes from grace, a quiet, steady force that holds you together when everything around you is falling apart. It's not loud, it's not flashy, but it is unshakable. Grace has this way of filling the gaps between what you think you can handle and what life actually throws at you. You might have gone into a storm thinking you'd drown in the first wave, but somehow you're still standing. Somehow isn't luck. It's grace stepping in, holding you steady when your legs should have given out. This strength isn't always obvious while you're in the middle of the trial. You might feel tired, worn, and on the edge of giving up. But day after day, you find just enough energy to get out of bed, just enough courage to take one more step, just enough faith to whisper another prayer. That's grace. Not taking away the challenge, but giving you the strength to endure it. Grace also teaches you that strength isn't always about being tough or fearless. Sometimes strength is quiet resilience. The decision to keep going even when no one's cheering for you, even when your heart feels heavy. Sometimes strength is allowing yourself to cry, to rest, and still choosing to rise again the next day. Grace gives you permission to be both strong and human at the same time. And here's the beautiful part. This strength isn't temporary. The strength God builds in you through grace becomes a part of who you are. What once felt impossible eventually becomes your testimony. You begin to realize change. If I made it through that with God's help, I can face whatever comes next. Grace turns your breaking points into building points. This strength also has a way of surprising you. People might look at your life and think you have it all together, not realizing the battles you fought in private. They don't know the nights you've prayed yourself to sleep, the mornings you've had to give yourself a pep talk just to keep moving. Grace was there in every breath, every heartbeat, every moment you chose not to quit. Sometimes grace makes you stronger without you even realizing it. You'll find yourself in a situation you once feared, and suddenly, it doesn't break you the way it would have before. That's when you know grace has been working in you all along, preparing you for moments you didn't even see coming. So, even if you feel weak right now, don't underestimate what grace is doing in you. The same God who carried you through your last storm is strengthening you for this one. You may not see the full picture yet, but one day you'll look back and realize the strength you walk in now was born in the very moments you thought you couldn't make it.